Welcome, everybody, to Gums and Gossip Podcast. My name is Hope. I am your Gum Goddess podcaster, and I have a special guest on today. You might be squirming a little bit, but that's a good thing. It's about contaminated water lines, dirty suctions, biofilm, infection risk, all that jazz, the fun stuff behind the scenes. I have Amanda Hill here, which amazing. She's an enthusiastic speaker, an innovative consultant, award-winning author who brings more than 25 years of clinical dental hygiene experience and education in dentistry, which I love. She's a recipient of the ADS's Emerging Infection Control Leader Award, an active participant with the advisory board for RDH Magazine, Dentistry IQ, and all the infection control practices, review boards. I could go on and on. Membership committee. She's the waterline warrior.
That's really all we need to say.
We are striving to make the topics in dentistry fun. She's amazing, and she is here with me today to help have some conversations about all the biofilm and ickies and all that stuff. So welcome, Amanda.
Why, thank you, Hope, for having me. I'm excited to be on the Gums and Gossip.
Yeah. So we always say, what's lurking in your dental line? So you're going to clean everything up for us today. Let's start by saying, how did you get into all this? Introduce yourself.
Everything. I know, right? You're like, what? You talk about, you're into what? Yeah.
Yeah.
It all just, it happened like things happen, sort of accidentally. I had actually been, funny enough, I had been living in Germany, because you've lived in Germany, right?
I did, yeah.
So I had been living in Germany, and we moved from Germany back to the States, and I, was ready to kind of get active in my dental hygiene component and all that good stuff as we're settling back into the States. And I went to that annual infection control course that, we're supposed to go to. And the guy that was lecturing mentioned dental unit water lines. And I was like, I have not heard this before. Like, okay. I wonder if this is like new since I was in Europe and just came back. And I went to my office the next day and I was like, hey guys, are we doing this waterline thing? And they looked at me like, cuckoo cuckoo. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to take another class and then I'm going to figure this out because this is actually really important because like kids have gotten harmed. And so I, took another webinar and then I kind of started to figure out in my office how to get us passing the waterline test.
What year was this?
This was in 2018.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been all that long, right?
Yeah.
I mean, less than 10 years, right? So of course, like anything, then once I started doing it, I had talked to my friends about it, and so I'd go to my dental hygiene component meeting and be like, guys, are you doing this? And they're like, no, we're not doing this. And I was like, oh, okay. So let me tell you how to do it. Because, anytime I'm excited about something, I have to tell everybody about it, right? Everyone has to know.
That's what we do.
So then I started writing articles about it. And then COVID happened, which, kind of stopped us in our tracks, right? But then infection control really became something that people started to pay attention to. And so then I actually started to do some lecturing, some webinars around it and that kind of stuff. And then the Waterline Warrior was born. So that's just it just all sort of happened.
Yeah. And here you are, a warrior. I'm a goddess. You're a warrior.
Right.
What else?
It's lovely.
It is. So kind of explain why safety is so important, because I'll kind of start off in prelude with this. Back in the day, I know you've been a hygienist as long as we're a hygienist, seasoned hygienist.
Yeah, we're back in the 1900s. We're an entire century ago.
I know. Back in the day, nobody even thought about anything like that. It was, and even just, we drank out of a water hose. I mean, that's
actually, I gotta tell you, the water hose is probably pretty safe. I'm just saying.
Compared to the dental lines.
Compared to the dental lines. I have heard it told that the toilet bowl is cleaner than your dental unit water lines.
Really?
Just so you know. Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, we'll go with this one then, because you've been on airplanes, you've been on all these things, and you have tested. This is amazing. And I've looked at all you've tested all these like water lines. What was the dirtiest? Like, what was the dirtiest
You
place
know,
that you've been?
I mean, I have tested some dirty stuff.
Yes.
The stuff that more I think we think about that maybe more the more shocking. The more shocking was
Okay.
I tested. We always hear to not have like ice on an airplane or coffee on an airplane or
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. And I fly a lot. Like I'm in the air
Yeah,
almost
I
every
know
week.
you do. I do too.
Yeah. And so I like to test across airlines, and I'm happy to say I tend to be very loyal Delta, and I'm happy to report that Delta has passed every time. Their ice,
Ooh.
their water, like their hot water. Not clearly, I didn't just test their bottled water.
Yeah.
Their bathroom water passed on Delta, which
So you
I don't.
actually you go sneak and you just
Oh,
grab
I don't
some
sneaky
water
sneak.
and you
I just tell people what I'm doing, and I have like the best conversations with the flight attendants. They're like,
I
"What are you
bet.
doing?" I'm like, "I'm testing the water." And
I got some water testing to
yeah,
do.
and then they're like, "Well, I'm gonna follow you because I want to know, like, if it comes back good."
Yeah.
But I will tell you, when I tested the ice on Southwest, it did not pass. And what I have learned from a flight attendant
Yeah.
is that Delta and United buy their ice. They just get bagged ice. So both Delta and United have passed.
Huh.
But Southwest, they bag their own ice. So they have ice makers, that somebody comes in. I heard that every person is required to bag a bag when they show up for a shift. I don't know if that's true or not. But this is just what I heard.
We'll have to confirm that.
Right.
If somebody
Yeah.
can
So if
like
you're
let us
part
know,
of Southwest,
that would be great.
Yeah, I want to know. I'm actually flying Southwest next month. I will ask these questions.
Okay.
Anyway,
we'll get back on that.
So so that could have to do with somebody's hand hygiene when they're
True.
bagging the bag, or certainly the maintenance of the ice maker. And ice makers have been linked to Legionella outbreaks in hospitals.
Wow. Yeah, because I do have to have a lot of ice. I know with my mom
Yeah.
when she was at the hospital, I mean, it was like
Yeah.
you're just getting ice all the time
Yeah.
because she was hot.
Yeah, you're getting the little ice chips.
Like the ice chips. Yeah, that's all you can have.
Right. So are they
Yeah.
cleaning and maintaining those ice makers, much like we need to be cleaning and maintaining our dental unit water lines? They have
Yeah.
similar engineering issues.
Yeah. That's fascinating. What about, I mean, do you test like rivers and different, I mean, are
Oh
there
yeah,
like,
I test rivers sometimes, and sometimes like the Gaylords. Have you ever been to a Gaylord hotel? You know how they have
Yeah,
like all
yeah.
the inside fountainy things? All of those failed, by the way.
Do they really?
They totally all failed. And I was like, no wonder I always like leave a Gaylord feeling like I'm like, you just feel a little congested.
I mean,
whatever.
these are like major brands, and here we are.
I
We're
know.
talking like dental water lines, and
Yeah.
and it doesn't seem as severe. Maybe they are. I don't know, but it doesn't even seem as severe as some of the other things out there in comparison. I don't know.
Well, the big difference, though, is that, I'm at a Gaylord, and yes, I am breathing those things in for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
But do I have an open pathway into my bloodstream,
right.
which is what we are doing in dentistry?
That's true. That's very, very good point. Yeah.
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 So, and certainly we could talk about host immune response, and we could get into all of those kind of,
Yeah.
geeky details. But, certainly, yeah, there are concerns about, we certainly want the water that we drink to be safe and that kind of stuff going on. But
And this
when
is
you
not to
think of-
scare people. This is to educate.
No,
This is actually
absolutely.
more educational and just to let you know, just to be aware and give you like a public, notice that,
I
what you
am
put in your
happy to
body in
report that, like,
general.
every single water filler that I've ever tested, you know how you bring those water bottles up and you can fill, they've always passed. I'm happy to report that.
Yeah.
I do now have, when I'm at a hotel, I always run one cup of hot water in my coffee maker before I then drink a
that's
cup
a
of
good
coffee, because they
point.
have failed a few times. So, there are things that
Yeah.
I do based on my tests.
That's amazing. Those are good pointers too, because you sit there and you think about, what else has been done in those coffee makers.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Did someone put orange juice in there? I mean, I don't know. I mean, you never know like what people put in.
Right. Who knows? And sometimes I just don't want to know. You
Yeah,
know,
well, hotel rooms in general,
I don't want to think.
you could
I just want to
black
go to bed.
lights. I mean, we don't carry black lights for a reason.
No,
So
oh no, exactly, right? Right? Oh my gosh, I don't want to know.
I just, you're kind of like, okay, it's got to be safe, right? Just like the
Right?
water, it's got to be safe.
Totally, totally.
What do you think you should educate? Let's talk about the biofilm. So,
Yeah,
biofilm is kind of like slime. That's what I think of
it
it
is
as
totally
slime.
slimy. Yes.
They're microorganisms. Maybe, educate a little bit about this biofilm. We all know, but maybe other people don't know, like what happens with the water lines and all that.
Yeah. So, I mean, certainly if you're a dental professional, when you think biofilm, you think about the biofilm in your patient's mouth or your own mouth, right?
Yeah.
But I think all of us can relate to biofilms because we see them all in so many things. Think about, this is a great one. My friend Annie gave this analogy, and this one has always stuck with me. If you ever have gotten flowers and you put them in a vase, and then the flowers die, and then you go to pull out the, you throw away the flowers, and then inside that vase, like you can't just swirl and swish and dump the vase. Like you have to scrub that vase clean, right? Because there's like that green slime.
Yeah.
That has formed inside the vase. And it takes a little work to get it out, right? That's biofilm. That is a biofilm that has formed around those flowers, like in that water, because that water sat stagnant, just hung out there, So that's a biofilm. So the reason why we talk about biofilms in dental unit water lines is because it's truly like the perfect environment for biofilm to grow. So we talked about that stagnant water in a flower vase, right? So that water just sits there. And so then whatever's in there, all the little microbes can hang out, and then they lay on each other, and then they quorum sense, and then they, build their slimy layer. Well, a very similar thing happens in our dental unit water line. So the water comes in from the city in a big pipe, flushing through, but then it comes into your chair, and the pipes get smaller and smaller, and the tubes get like so tiny, like you could only fit a paper clip. Like if you've ever taken off your air water syringe, like a paper clip fits in there. That's about it, right? Yeah. And so that tiny, tiny tubing, it allows this amazing sort of engineering issue to occur where the water is able to touch all the sides. There isn't like any free flowing water that happens, like in a big pipe where the water can flow.
Yeah.
And there's not always stuff, sticking to the sides. So because it all sticks to the sides, it's able then to really lay down biofilms. And then that water sits stagnant for a long period of time. When you think about like how, like you squirt your air water syringe or you use your power scaler, but really it's if you were to go and fill up a cup of water, right? You're like, I'm a little thirsty. And you decided that you're going to fill it up from your air water syringe, like that's going to take a hot minute. You're going to be there. As opposed if you went to the sink and it would take like 10 seconds, right? Got my cup, right? And so that slow flow then also lends itself to biofilms.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just this perfect engineering storm that happens that allows those biofilms to lay down. I think of it like our arteries. You think about cholesterol, right, in your arteries, and it lays down. And if it continues to build, then eventually then it releases. And that's when you have like a stroke or a heart attack. Mm-hmm. This is what happens in our dental unit water lines. Those biofilms lay down and then eventually they release. And like if you've ever been squirting your water and all of a sudden you see a black dot and you're like, was that black dot? Like, and I have seen that. I had seen that long before I knew about water lines. I pretty much was like, oh, weird, and kept going, right?
And you suction it.
Right.
You're like, oh my gosh. It's like a fly in there.
Exactly. And now I know that what that was actually biofilm releasing. Now, you don't always see the biofilm. No. So don't be thinking, well, I've never seen black dots, so I'm safe.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
That's not, but that is a sign that there's a lot of biofilm, like that you're seeing chunks come off, right?
I think that was more back in the day when I would see that stuff. Now it seems like, and even with the suctions, which we'll get to the suctions and everything too, but, it's something that, I guess we started putting, all the water bottles instead of having the water lines and stuff from the city. Everybody started doing the, sterile water. But even with sterile water, even if you put it in the flowers, like your analogy,
Right?
with the flowers and stuff, even if you put in like the most distilled sterile water with the flowers, it's still going to have biofilm,
Right.
right?
Right. Right. It has way less to do with what water you're putting into your bottle. However, I still want you to use a good quality water in your bottle.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it has way more to do with what happens to that water as it goes through your chair. There's a great study out there by Barbeau that showed that they used sterile water in a chair. So they put sterile water in the chair, they ran it in, and in only 5 days, only 5 days, that water went from sterile to 200,000 colony forming units of microbes. And 500 colony forming units is what the EPA says is safe water. So in 5 days, it grew from 0 to 200,000. So it grows fast. It's not, it's not like, we've only been open for like a year. We don't have to worry about this quite yet. It's not like that. It does happen. So you must be vigilant and stay on top of this.
So when you're, I guess with the kits and everything else now that people provide, it's it's monthly checks now, or
So some of it depends on your chair manufacturer. So your chair manufacturer, which is regulated by the FDA because it's a medical device, your chair manufacturer might tell you how often to test your water. If it does not say, the general consensus is from the Association for Dental Safety is test monthly until you pass for 2 consecutive months, and then you can move to quarterly testing. If you fail, you're going to go back to monthly testing. And the reason that is because if you're just starting, we want to know that you're really getting that biofilm. You want to be able to check it. It's almost like
even a baseline, just to get a baseline, right?
It's a good baseline, right? Yeah. And you know how after we do an SRP or a non-surgical periodontal therapy, sorry, we're 1900s.
Yeah.
Glassy smooth. So, like you have that patient back in 6 weeks to be like, okay, how's the healing? How's it going? You're kind of doing something similar with your Waterlines. Like you test and you're like, okay, we're doing good, and then you test again. And then that idea that you can move to quarterly means, okay, I know we're in a flow, like we're doing good. And then if you fail, again, you're going to go back to the beginning because you want to see like, okay, do I have a hold on that biofilm, or is the biofilm winning?
Yeah. No, so I think, is there anything else like with that, like any kind of other common misconceptions that people have brought to your attention
There's a ton.
Yeah.
One I always say is, we use distilled water, so we don't have to do any of this stuff. Yeah. Dude, again, it's less about the water that's in your bottle, and it's way more about the engineering in your chair. And actually, distilled water doesn't have, you've taken out the chlorine and things like that. Distilled water actually might grow more bacteria. And there's many chair manufacturers that are now recommending not to use distilled water because it has no minerals. It wants minerals. It wants to come back to this neutral state. So it's been leaching minerals from the brass fittings and causing some corrosion. So check your chair manufacturer. You might not want to use distilled water, but again, follow the instructions for use. And then I also get people that are like, well, we don't have a bottle, so we can't do any of this. I'm like, well, you need to make some choices, and you have a couple choices. One, you can set up an entire centralized water treatment center, like as it comes into your practice and where it goes through all this stuff, and then it goes to your chair. It costs a lot of money.
It does.
Or you can retrofit your chair with bottles. And I swear, the oldest chair can be retrofitted. My office that I work with here in Virginia, they just retrofitted a chair because there was some plumbing issues, and they retrofitted, and it cost them like $400 to retrofit the chair. So, and so now that chair is safe. Now, another thing that I'm running into a lot, because I get emails all the time, like, help me, Amanda, I need help with my water, is we are discovering that even though you have a bottle, we're finding that not every line draws from the bottle. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah,
and the way that you can test it is you could like put in like a colored water or use a colored shock. There's shocks out there that are colored.
That's what I said. They have the blue tablets. Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You could get one of those colored tablets as long as it's a color you can see. Sometimes the tablets are colored and like you're like, I don't know, I can't really tell. But like those strong colored ones,
yellow.
You could even color water if you wanted to. You could throw a little food coloring in the water and see. and see, is it actually pulling from the bottle? Oftentimes when you have a rear delivery device, you know, you have your power scaler, it sits behind you. That ends up drawing from the city. And so then you have this failed line because it's not getting treated at all. And so I'm finding that people are really struggling with that one. There is a new product on the market. Can I mention a product name?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Mention.
There's a new product on the market by Parkel called Pure Clarity. And it's this little filter and you can put it into your scaler. So if you have that scenario, if that scenario happens where your scaler isn't pulling from the bottle, check out that product by Parkel, because before I used to tell people they had to like call their service tech in and rerun all the lines. So now you don't have to do that, which is so good. So this is a good solution. But the biggest thing, if anybody took anything from this podcast, the biggest thing is you have to test your lines. No matter what you're doing or not doing, you have to test your lines.
What about, okay, so as a patient, you know, we've kind of gone through the dental thing and all that. There was like, it freaked people out. I forget what year it was, but it was on like 66. It was like on
60 minutes.
Yeah, 60
Dentistry's
minutes.
dirty little secret.
It was so dirty. And so it was like everybody would come into my op and they'd be looking at the water and doing, because they had heard on TV, you know, and I think they rerun it every once in a while, you know, just to keep it dirty. And so anyways, they would come in and they'd say, what about your water lines, this and that? And it freaked people out. Yeah. So and it really, as a patient, would you go in and be like, you know, what are you doing with your water lines? Because as a hygienist, I'm sitting there thinking I'm highly capable. Your instruments are sterile. Your water's sterile. Right. To me, and I'm looking at the patient, which is valid. It's a valid question, but I'm like, why would I do that to my own family? Why would, you know, but maybe some hygienists would. I don't know.
I gotta tell you, I feel like, I mean, I've been talking about this since 2018, 19, right? I feel like I've already talked to every dental professional in the world, right?
No,
I have not. I have not. And in fact, most recently I was in Georgia, and Georgia just passed a law, like their dental board and their governor just signed it. They passed a law that you have to test quarterly. Like, it's not just CDC recommendations. It's not just guidance. Like, now if you're not testing, and they have inspectors that are coming in and checking people's offices and being like, let me see your test, which, like OSHA. I mean, so good. Like, I totally want to be like the water police.
That would be so cool.
I know. So, but I was just at Hinman, and of course this law came down, and the amount of dental professionals that came, that I was at the ProEdge Dental Water Labs booth, and the amount of dental professionals that came, they're like, so what's this new thing we got to do with water? So this is 2025. and that case, that the dentistry's dirty little secret that you're talking about, that I think that was in 2016 is when that came out, because that was right after the Anaheim case, after there was 71 children that were sickened with Mycobacterium abscessus. And Hope, when I say sickened, I don't just mean like, I got a little cough, but I mean like lost parts of their jaw, facially disfigured, lost hearing, like, and this was from water. So still 10 years later, almost 10 years later, I'm still getting, wait, we got what? I mean, do we really have to? Like, I haven't killed anybody. And you're like, first off, you don't know, actually.
Yeah, who would have the studies? I mean, and you see so much more, you know, with the oral systemic link and with everything else going on now, you do have to be a little more cautious, because you don't know what people have and what they, you know, and so if they have like cuts or whatever. I don't know. I'm just like throwing things. You wouldn't know, you know, about the water lines.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So the interesting thing about that Anaheim case that, you know, that 60 Minutes did that special about was the symptoms in those kids. So 71 kids were sickened with this contaminated water. The symptoms showed up in these kids one day after treatment. So Mimi Morales was the first little kid that she went in. She had a pulpotomy, like a baby root canal. Okay. And the next day, Mimi's face starts to like swell and whatever. So Mimi ends up in the hospital for over a month, huge surgeries. But then like the next kid came in like a week later, 2 weeks later, another kid came in. And after the third kid, the infectious disease doctor who kept getting called in was like,
they call them, they're like, hey.
They're like, hang on, I've seen 3 of these weird cases. Because normally if it's a one-off, they're like, weird infection, whatever, no big deal, right? But the crazy thing about the Anaheim case is, so then, then they started following every single person that had walked into that office, right? But the symptoms showed up in these kids one day after treatment. So Mimi, right, one day. The last kid out of those 71, kid 71, his symptoms showed up 409 days after he went to the dentist. So this is the point. Is for those people that are like, wow, I've never killed anybody. I've never hurt anybody. You don't know, actually. It's like that, it's like that yucky tummy that you get. And you're like, was that the Thai food? Or was that, am I getting a bug? Or like, you don't know. You don't know what it was from. And so the idea is that we know this is a risk, right? We know this is a risk in dentistry. This affects patients.
Right.
Yeah, this affects us. This affects us clinicians. I can talk about that in a second. Yeah. This affects us. And so we know this is a problem. And if you are not doing something, if you're not testing your lines, if you can't ensure that they are safe, then you are not providing a safe dental visit.
It kind of just, this is a side. I bought a new dishwasher. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they called me. Now I'm like regretting it. But they called me to test my water lines to make sure everything. Yeah.
It was probably more pressure. They want pressure. I don't think they care about the county.
I declined. I was like, I think my water's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. At my house.
Though, it's actually funny. There's been a scam going around, which is hilarious. It's awful hilarious. But
no.
So there's been a scam going around. I don't know, scam. Probably maybe it's not scam. Maybe it's predatory. I'm gonna go with the word predatory.
Okay.
There's been this thing that's been going around where you get this test in the mail that says we'll test your water.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So of course I get this and I'm like, oh, will you now? Like,
you're
do
like,
you
I've
know
already
who you're
tested.
talking to? So I went ahead and did this little test. It was free, and you sent it back. Which, first off, it's very funny because you sent back a water test in the mail without any kind of freezer pack. Which, if you're going to do a mail-in test, like we can talk about the different kind of tests. If you're going to do a mail-in test, you always do a mail-in test with a freezer pack, and it's always next day aired so that the microbes don't have time to grow, right? So this, this thing, this water company, is sending off these water tests. You send it back with no... So, whatever's in there in that tube, it's like your flower vase has begun, right?
Yeah.
And then they call you and then they're like, oh, we want you to know that you have huge amounts of biofilm in, or they didn't even say biofilm.
Yeah, they probably don't say biofilm.
And then they're like, and we sell a filtration system for your house that we can help. And you're like, there's the shtick.
Yeah.
There's the shtick.
That's what I felt.
Yeah, so don't fall for that. That is your water, wherever you get your water from, your municipal water, their water, they're testing their water.
Yeah.
Now I do sometimes test my water at home because it's fun, right? Because I can.
Because you can.
Because I can. And if you were to get one of the dental unit waterline tests, which I can totally get you one, you can test your lines and see. And there are couple little things that I'd say at your house, like if you find that you have a failure, but for the most part, the water coming out of your tap is probably safe. Your refrigerator might be another story if you're not changing that filter.
Yeah, I always change my filter, so I know. I believe in prevention, right? I think a lot of hygienists, we're just like a preventive specialist.
That's who we are.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
So So when you're, I guess, it's interesting. We'll kind of, if there's anything else you want to share about the water and everything, I know, about how there's so many different tests and there's so many different things that people do, right?
Yep.
I know there's fluoride in the water. We'll kind of go from there. And there's some people that are opposed to fluoride and some people that, but in each state, everything's regulatory on is it the city, the county?
It would be your city or your county. And, and like we have a water treatment plant not far from my house. And that's when they, that's what they do to make sure that water is safe. Now, this is a huge conversation about, fluoride and what's in your water. And people have a lot of different opinions and there's filtration systems you can buy. But really, that has nothing to do with your dental unit water. These are just things that you can choose for your household.
Exactly.
If that's what you want to do.
Yeah. No, it is definitely a choice. What about with the suctions?
Yeah.
Because suctions have come a long way too. since I've been, and and we would sit there, and I know this is awful to even say, but somebody, you would squirt water in somebody's mouth, and they didn't want to swallow it.
Of course
And
not, 'cause it's toxic.
you're like, it's your saliva's in there too. Just
Right.
go ahead and swallow. I've already suctioned it out. Go ahead and swallow.
Nope.
And I always found that so fascinating that people would not want to swallow.
Right. And you'd have to tell them like it's safe. And I think maybe part of that is because they really don't know what you're squirting in their mouth. Maybe you're squirting in something that's bad. I don't know. So, yeah. So it's sometimes you do have to say it's safe to swallow, but sometimes they still won't do it. They'll be like,
They do. They're like, put it in.
Right? Totally.
I'm like, you can just it's kind of like when somebody leans back, in
Oh,
the
yeah.
dental chair, and they're like, no. And I'm like, you do have a bed, don't you?
Right.
You do go to sleep, don't
Right.
you?
Yeah.
I mean, you can lean back, right?
Yeah,
And
you're
so
safe.
people will be like, no. And it's all in respect. I mean, there's,
Absolutely.
yeah, this is all
Absolutely.
in respect. I mean, it's just kind of some of the funny things you think about, because you're like, we're all human.
Right.
And we all have fears. I specialize, in dental fears and fears. I've been a fear person too, hope and fear, right?
Yeah.
And so anyways, it's interesting to see the different generations, because I've been kind of touching base on with the different generations. And one of the things with the alpha generation, which you might find fascinating too, is that they are the more the generations have evolved,
Yep.
the more eco-savvy that people are becoming more conscious of the earth. And so this has been so with this water, I thought this was a great, informative, I'm so excited you're here still. But it's really interesting how things have evolved over time to have more eco-friendly stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think not only, in dentistry, we have a lot of disposables. It's the nature of the infection control beast. Certainly single-use things are far less likely to cause a cross-contamination to another patient. So then then we're thinking about the environment is how can we have proper infection control, but also be eco-friendly? And I think a lot of that comes down to looking at the sustainable practices from the company where you buy your products. So there are companies out there that work really hard to offset their carbon footprint. So then you still are using your disposable items for patient safety, but you're doing it in a way that offsets that footprint. And so I think that's an important thing to look into when we're thinking about our companies. Oftentimes the cheapest thing is not always the best thing for the environment. And people always say that they want sustainable, but when it comes time to buy,
even organic, I mean, the expense of everything.
Right.
Yeah.
They end up then going to the cheapest thing. And so it's hard. And then companies that are working hard to be sustainable are struggling because they're like, well, nobody's buying it. They say they want it, but they're not buying it. And so, it's hard.
With the economy and everything too. Okay, so suctions.
Okay. Suctions.
Let's go back to our suctions and everything. They have all kinds of ones that, you can do. I got used to like bending, the little suction and doing that and kind of having it just on the side. And then we learned, don't close on the suction because you give it. I was always, telling
give
people,
it a kiss.
Give it a kiss. Give it a kiss. And and people would laugh and be like, oh, okay. But we're not supposed to do that.
And this is a problem for a couple reasons. One, patients love to close down on that suction because it's a great way to get
comfort.
I mean, even though it's just water or whatever, our gloves taste funny. Those are all funny tastes. So you like to get all that out of the mouth, right? And as a clinician, darn it, it's convenient to have my patient close their mouth to clear the field, right? So I'm not working underwater, right? So, however, backflow is real. So what backflow is when previously suctioned fluids from previous patients, when a patient closes their mouth and they make more pressure, that previously suctioned fluid actually comes back into the next patient or subsequent patient's mouths, which if you ever think about drinking after a toddler, like drinking a straw, have you ever watched a toddler drink out of a straw?
Spit back into
and you watch it and you actually see like the crackers go down the straw, right? That's backflow. And then you're like, have some, right? Delicious, right?
ABC gum, right?
So I I am a big fan of a backflow preventer.
Yeah.
So they make these disposable one-way valves. That you pop on, and then the patient can totally close their mouth. They can have their makeup party with the suction. They can get their mouth clean, but then they're not at risk for backflow. So it has this little flapper valve that comes forward and back. And there's some companies
Yeah.
that make great ones. Hugh Freedy has one called SafeFlow. Dove Dental has one that I love, that not only does it have a disposable backflow preventer, but it also has a disposable valve. And it's made sustainably. So if we're looking sustainable. And then Maxell has just come out with an autoclavable backflow preventer, which comes in really pretty colors. So there's some options. So that way you can still have, you can still get the water, the fluids out of your patient's mouth, but don't have to worry about backflow. Because the CDC says 1 in 4 or 5 people experience backflow.
Isn't that crazy? So looking back, I'm going to kind of go hindsight. Looking back, when we first started practicing and everything, and you can't look back, you have to move forward with everything, and you hope that you just did the best what you could with what you had, right?
Right.
I mean, there's so many things that have evolved, and even now looking in here, 10 years down the line, we'll be like, okay, with AI or something, I mean, we'll be like, why did we even do the backflow thing when you had something else? I mean, there's going to be different things that come about. And that's where people are constantly doing research and giving information and all that. So definitely research what's going on out there as well, with all that. But like even the suctions, like there's the high speed, there's the low speed, there's so much like operatory, there's so many things in the operatory, for sterilization, keeping everything safe. And then even COVID times you mentioned, like COVID times made everything highlight even more, not only from the clinician side and the dental side, but also from the patients, And
Absolutely.
so, it's so important to kind of, address all these things. So if you, with your topics that you even talk about and everything, I know it seems people might say it seems a little boring. This is actually fun. I think this is really fun. I'm having a blast with this. But, people are like, really? Water suctions?
Suction?
Is there anything else? Like if you had like a wish of something, what else is it that you would wish for the dental? Like, is there something that's a magical something that would be really cool? Have you ever thought about something you could invent?
Oh, something I could invent. I would love, truthfully, these things exist, but I would love some kind of like spray or fogger but something that you could just like pop in your op, and that it's almost like Hope. It's like this.
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw these bathrooms when you lived in Germany where you like, it was a public bathroom, and then it was all stainless steel or steel on the inside, and then you would leave and you'd close the door, and the entire thing would get like washed down this crazy town, right? And then it was then disinfected for the next person, right? How cool would it be if like something like that? So like all of this, like when we think about like all of these chemicals that we touch, right? I worry about like all of these, disinfectants that we're touching and things that we're dealing with. And so, what does that do for us as healthcare professionals? Are you wearing the proper PPE? Probably not. And so there are things out there that are more environmentally friendly. Like, I think hypochlorous is interesting. I think ozone is interesting. The big issue is these don't have EPA. They don't have an EPA number that shows that they kill tuberculosis and bloodborne pathogens. And they don't have a kill time that is 1 to 3 minutes, that's the max that I could, handle in and op. So if I could invent something, it would be something like this totally safe, environmentally friendly disinfectant that had like a 1 minute kill time. And it could work for Waterlines too, right? We could do everything, right? But I need it to be non-corrosive to our, to our equipment, to our chairs. We have so much now that's high tech, right? And so, so many of these things are sensitive to our disinfectants. So I think something like that would be amazing. And if you could just press a button and walk away and like go do chart notes and come back, oh, like that would be amazing too.
Poof, right?
Right?
That's an error. Like when they went through the showers
Yeah.
and they were already clothed and everything and
Right?
all like fresh.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think that would be amazing for room turnover and for just, clinician.
I do have to say those bathrooms, they did scare me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, because I was like, are they gonna go off while I'm in here?
Right? Right. And you go
no
in, like,
idea.
if you go in right after somebody, they're still dripping, and you're like, this is weird. Oh yeah,
like,
it's weird.
Ew.
It's weird.
It was weird, but I could see how that would work. Maybe if it's steam. I don't know if you could just steam the room.
Right. Yeah, I definitely don't have it figured out yet, but it's a cool idea.
That is a cool idea. And somehow there's going to be AI versions of something.
Right.
I don't know. And
Right.
proof it's going to be all sterile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So with all your articles and all your things that you've been doing, what's on your forefront now? What are you up to now?
Ooh. So lately, I've been getting super nerdy about antibiotic stewardship.
Okay.
And so I'm really into not only understanding how we can be better stewards of our antibiotic usage and non-usage. Just saying. There's so many non-antibiotic therapies for periodontal prevention or treatment of periodontal disease and preventative treatments for caries. Like, oh my gosh, there's so many cool things out there now that we as hygienists, like, now's our rise up time, friends. Like, if
it is, there's a lot going on in the hygiene
world,
a lot, but there's
a lot happening.
So much.
But there's so much in prevention, and so that's around antibiotic stewardship. That's around minimally invasive dentistry, which I think is so amazing, between the SDFs and the curodonts and all of those things. Then things as we get into periodontal disease, looking at products like PerioProtect and looking at all of these desiccants and things like that. Like, there's so much more we can do than just be teeth cleaners. I think I just did two tangents because of antibiotic stewardship and all this prevention. But I feel like they go together. Yeah. Because it's in how we can create a healthy patient, how we can work on that oral, that not just that oral microbiome, but that whole, treating that whole patient.
I think it's more the whole wellness. And that I love all that part too. Even like with the I was gonna go back to the generations and stuff, the baby boomers and all that. People were just handed, like my own mother, handed medications, and this was a solution. This is just a solution to do all these medications and stuff. And I don't take medications at all. But they're needed in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of mental health. There's a lot of different things that people really need the medications and stuff for. But the antibiotics and everything, it got to be like candy. People were handing out, and people would take it because either your doctor's giving it to you, your dentist is giving it to you, somebody's giving it to you. And long term, it affected a lot of people, and then they develop an immunity to they can't do any of that stuff, and they have to get a higher antibiotic or do something.
Or even if there
different.
Is one, they say that by 2050, it's estimated that more people will die from antibiotic resistant bacteria than cancer.
Wow, and that's very I believe that.
Yeah. This affects every single one of us, whether you were ever taking antibiotic or not. This affects every single one of us. And I don't know about you, but I would rather save that antibiotic for when I super duper duper need it. And
question everything. My advice for people is educate yourself on stuff. Don't just, I know people have had every dentist, every doctor, every, any professional that's in the medical industry and everything, that is giving you something. Make sure you're educated about it, that it doesn't, and even because there's going to be people, they're not you. They are trying their best and, to make sure that your wellness, but they don't know you, and everybody has different components and different things that, so there's that. Absolutely. So if this doesn't make you squirm, all these things, to really be, cautious and everything else. Is there anything else, any other key takeaways that you'd like the listeners to know? Infection control, obviously, isn't just, it's caring, it's compliance, it's, making sure everybody's taken care of. Any other little key takeaways?
I would say just make sure that you are staying up to date, like really taking that annual infection control OSHA course from someone that that knows what they're talking about, because you can get some that maybe aren't accurate. And so really making sure that you're getting one that's accurate. You're looking to the sources that have good, accurate information. The Association for Dental Safety, if you ever have questions, that's like my go-to place when it comes to infection control. But if I would tell you anything, my friends, I would say test your dental unit water lines. And then if you fail, email me and I'll help you.
Yeah, perfect. So where can we find you?
I'm Amanda Hill RDH on Instagram and on Facebook, and my email is amandahillrdh@gmail.com. So I'm pretty easy to find. LinkedIn too.
You
Amanda
are.
Hill RDH.
I was like,
yeah.
And you've been such a great friend. You know, we don't know each other in person, you know, but one day we will.
One day. It's going to happen.
One day we
IRL.
will.
In real life, man.
We will see each other in real life, and that's going to be amazing. So I just want to thank you, you know, for sharing all this wonderful knowledge and being on the show and everything, and some encouraging words, you know, of, you know, that everybody can do this. We're all in this together.
Yep.
This is a, you know, hygienists are professionals. We have been, you know, in every state and every place, guidelines, there's a lot going on. So it's a matter of everybody getting together and just taking care of each other.
Yeah.
Just humanizing, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So even if you're a hygienist, assistant, dentist, even in any kind of healthcare professional, you know, we're all human. So,
right.
Yeah.
Just be kind. Just be kind.
Keep it kind. There we go. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks so much, Hope.